So I talked about this trade from the perspective of the Raptors a little bit earlier. Now it's time for the Spurs. My immediate reaction to the Spurs sending Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green to Toronto for Jakob Poeltl, Demar Derozan, and a first-round pick was that this is a win-right-now move, and that's pretty much it, right? But then I thought about it a little bit more, and I believe I have come to the conclusion that I think this, while it's not a screaming for a rebuild sort of a move, I do think it could allow the Spurs to be at least pretty decent for a couple seasons, and we'll dive into that. But they also do have a bit of a young thing kind of brewing here between DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker, Jakob Poeltl, the first-round pick that they acquired for Toronto, and then the fact that if you fast forward to this season, the Spurs do have some money to play with for a free agency class that's pretty damn good, because Pau Gasol's last season is partially guaranteed. If they let him go, then they save about $10 million or so, combined with the salary cap going up, and I don't think the Spurs' future is completely screwed, is what I'm getting at. So I guess we can dive first into what this means for the right now, though. They won, 47 games without Kawhi Leonard, and now you're putting DeMar DeRozan into the mix. And I know that this team, depending on how you feel about three-pointers, they may not be the most fun team to watch next season with Aldridge and DeRozan, we assume, shooting a lot of mid-range jumpers, posting up a lot, and probably going to be some DeRozan ISOs and things like that. But from a pure talent standpoint, this team improved since Kawhi Leonard basically didn't play last year. So you could think this team could creep up into like the low 50s, maybe even mid 50s in wins, depending on if there's maybe more bad teams in the NBA than we envision, mainly in the Western Conference. So that's cool. Now the West has also gotten better with the Lakers, and you assume the Nuggets just getting a year better. There's a chance the T-Wolves fall off because of internal problems, but Houston's still there. The Warriors, if Gobert is healthy for a whole season with the Jazz. So the West is going to be a doozy, but I could picture the Spurs being right in the mix of all that. And I also think there is a chance we could see a better DeMar DeRozan, just because maybe he'll move off the ball more often under Popovich, because with the Raptors, a lot of the time it was ISOs and post-ups. And maybe now we'll just see him get some switches more often with getting some screens along the baseline or whatever, which is a lot of time what they run for Aldridge, but I could see them running it for DeRozan as well. And just floppy sets, and Popovich has been really good at embracing guys who are not three-point shooters, so DeRozan is maybe in for some improvement under Popovich. As far as how much longer Pop is actually going to be coaching this team, I don't know. But yeah, there's that for you. Another year of improvement for DeJounte Murray is intriguing. Lonnie Walker's coming in, of course, and I think Poeltl could be a better defender than Pau. I mean, he already is a better defender than Pau. It's just Popovich has found a way to have this team be really good on defense, even with Gasol playing so much. So yeah, I could see a rationale for this team being a little better for this season and maybe a couple years in the future here. So that's all cool. Then if we get into all the future stuff and why I don't think this is necessarily we're going for it right now, we don't care about our future kind of a move. I mean, look, if Popovich has found a way to make this team good with Gasol on defense, he could do a lot with Poeltl. Now, Gasol's a way better rebounder than Jakob is, and I mean, Poeltl's he's just going to have to get better. If you're not a good defensive rebounder, then you're really only so good on defense if you're just going to give the ball back to the other team a bunch of times. So he's got to improve there, but his defensive instincts are pretty good, even if he looked kind of bad in that round 2 series against the Cavs. So there's that for you. I could see him becoming one of the better defensive bigs in the NBA in this situation. I think his fit next to Aldridge could be good. Could be. I'm not saying it is right now. DeJounte needs to improve on his outside shot and his overall playmaking, but his rebounding, his defense, and just his physical nature overall being, 6'5", I believe, and pretty athletic. That's intriguing stuff at the point guard position. And then you've got Lonnie Walker, who could be a real scorer for them, as he was a decent scorer in college once he was really given the opportunity. But he does still need to figure out the game a little bit more. His ball handling is good, but it's not where it should be if he really wants to be a scorer like that. And sometimes he takes too many pull-up jumpers and things like that. Has to improve at passing. Like he's not a perfect prospect, but he also went 19th, so that's fine. But if there's anybody who can teach someone how to fix the bad stuff in their game, then I'm sure it's the Spurs. So he's intriguing. Combine that with DeJounte, and it's something. And then with Jakob, that's also cool. We have to, of course, account for the fact that the Spurs are better than anyone when it comes to maintaining aging star players, as Tim Duncan went for how long still being a really good defensive player. And if Aldridge is all in on this team, then we could see a 35-year-old LaMarcus Aldridge still being a decent source of offense for them. DeRozan's 28, so he probably has, we'll say, 3 or 4 years of being at where he is right now. And then you combine all that with maybe getting better under Popovich. It's really not that bad, if you ask me. And then we go to Pau Gasol's contract, which is partially guaranteed for next season. If they choose to let him go, which they should, then they'll have to pay him like $6 million, I believe it is. So they'll save basically 10, and that would put their salary for the 2019 season, or excuse me, the 2020 season, at around $96 million, and the salary cap for the 2020 year, I guess it's projected to be at 108. That gives you $12 million to play with, and if you wanted to make other moves to free up some more salary, then hey, maybe they could creep up into like the 17 or $18 million range if they could get off of Bellinelli's money, which I don't really know why they signed him to a 2-year contract, but it is what it is. I mean, hell, maybe they would even consider buying out Patty Mills to give themselves maybe about $7 or $8 million more to play with. So depending on what they were able to do in a future free agency with a free agency class that's pretty decent, hey, maybe it's Aldridge, DeRozan, some other really good player, DeJounte, Lonnie Walker, and Pirtle have all improved a bit. Maybe they've acquired some other guys via trade, or maybe they get someone who's kind of under the radar who grows to being decent for them, which is something that they're pretty good at doing. I mean, before you know it, that team's looking pretty good. Now, is it like Warriors good? I mean, no, but if all we're going to operate under is if we can beat the Warriors or not, then like 90% of the league might as well tank. So, yeah, there's all that for you. Now, of course, this could end up being just whatever, and this team could just float around as being a 5th or 6th seed for a few years. None of these young dudes really end up becoming anything. They don't really nail anyone in free agency, and they're just kind of floating around with Aldridge and DeRozan, shooting a bunch of 15-footers, and it's just kind of whatever. Yeah, it's a possibility, but if you were going to go for just trying to be decent while building up a young thing still, then this was going to be the way to go about it. So that's what I got to say for it and for the Spurs. And yeah, that's it.